This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Hello all and welcome to episode 457 of the Yellow Wall Pod. I'm Stefan Butzko, your host for today's show, where we talk about the cup match against TSG Hoffenheim, a 1-0 win for Dortmund. We will also talk about the 3-3 draw against Eintracht Frankfurt, and of course we will preview Saturday's game against Bayern Munich. For all that and more, joins me Lars Pollmann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan, I'm wondering how it's going to be more with our time frame, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. That was routine. Yes, I have not a lot of time today, so this will be a very quick episode. So, Lars, the cup match just concluded. Dortmund did make it through to the cup, a 1-0 win, as I said, against Hoffenheim. A home match for the first time in a long time in the cup. Marco Reus, of course, the sole scorer of the day. And it was a well-crafted goal by Dortmund, with Bino Gittens getting the assist and Gio Reyna getting the pre-assist. But yeah, what did you make of that game?
First of all, first home game in over 2 years in the cup, which is always kind of crazy to think about. I think they've had like 5 home games since 2018 or whatever, so it's always nice to be at home in the cup. I think pound for pound, that was probably the best performance they've given all season. I think the only game that really comes close is Newcastle away, and they were obviously riding their luck there quite a bit. I think they were much more solid defensively, obviously, against a somewhat worse opponent. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, especially the midfield interplay between Reina, Brandt, Bino Gittens, Reus. I think there was a lot to enjoy there. I think Salih Özcan, perhaps his best performance in a Dortmund shirt, although he gave away the only real scoring chance for Hoffenheim outside of the first 2 minutes, when I don't exactly know what happened there. Schlotterbeck was immense again. I think he's been on a real good run of form basically ever since he was excluded from the Germany team, so maybe we need to give a shout out to Julian Nagelsmann. And yeah, I mean, Hoffenheim kind of played into their hands, doing their usual on the front foot stuff, giving up a bit more space than Dortmund usually get in home games against opposition that isn't of the highest caliber in the Bundesliga or in Europe, and Dortmund did really well in that. I think the only thing missing from the game was the second or third goal, which they had a couple of chances for, but I never really felt like the win was in any real jeopardy, and that's all you can ask for in the cup, really. So I have basically no complaints, which is, I think, rare for me and for this podcast in general.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the game against Werder Bremen, I think, was similar, where it was a 1-0 home match win, and you did not feel that the win was in any real trouble. And it was similar today. So in that, from that standpoint, very good. Also, really liked, as you said, the midfield interplay as well. I did not quite like Gio Reyna out on the wing against Frankfurt, but today I think he played a little bit more centrally. So it was fine. Overall, I do believe that Dortmund could have created a few more chances. But there were a couple of poor touches at the very end of their attacking plays, or they probably would have scored 3 or 4. Today was certainly the spaces there afforded to them. So, yeah, I don't think we can complain about this one. There's one thing for certain, is that there will be a new cup winner. Since Leipzig won the last 2 and they are out against Wolfsburg, also 1-0 loss for them. I don't know who else will be in the next round along with Dortmund, since the other games haven't even kicked off yet, or will soon kick off. So Lars, I think we can just say professional performance. I don't think we have too many injury concerns. Marius Wolf did come off, however. But with that, I think we can focus our attention to the Bundesliga. And we did have a very entertaining match last Sunday against Eintracht Frankfurt, a 3-3. The expected goals according to FB Refs, both 2.2 on both sides. A bit of weird refereeing going on with Mamouche scoring a penalty in the 8th minute, where I don't really think it was a penalty. Then I think Mamouche was fouled by Alex Meyer, who had then replaced Kobel, and that probably should have been a penalty, but wasn't. And very late in the game, Schlotterbeck was also held, I think also by Mamouche, if I'm not mistaken.
Larsson.
Or Larsson. Yeah, it was certainly a real tug on a set piece. Where you, in my book, also could have given a penalty. So let's get the refereeing controversy out. So maybe let's get ourselves in the mood for that, since we do play Bayern next. But Lars, first about these calls, what did you make of them? I thought the state of Bundesliga refereeing once again is very, very horrendous.
I think possibly people will remember that I pledged ahead of the season not to moan about referees this season. And I can keep that up because the German FA have come out and basically criticized the referee themselves. So I can just relay what they said. They said that the handball penalty against Wolf was an incorrect decision and an overcorrection by VAR, if you like. Because obviously Wolf didn't see the ball coming, which is always important. So there's no level of intent there. The positioning of his arm, while a bit above, his torso or whatever, is still on the shoulder line, which is kind of an important thing. So yeah, I think we are all in agreement basically that these shouldn't be handballs, even if the rules maybe say that might be. But even the German FA have now come out and said that shouldn't have been a handball. So clearly, the decision was incorrect. But then we all know pretty certainly that Frankfurt should have had a penalty for the Meyer on Mamouche incident that you mentioned. I'm kind of flabbergasted at the referee going out to take a look himself and then still not giving a penalty. I don't know. Maybe he had in the back of his mind the handball situation, but then why does he even go out there? I don't know. So Frankfurt should have had one penalty in the first half. Ultimately, I guess it doesn't really matter which one it was. Obviously, if the second penalty had been given and taken, that would have made it 3-0, I think, and the game would basically have been over, I presume, because Dortmund were really flat until then. The third situation he didn't even mention, I think, the Füllkrug offside for Moukoko's erstwhile 2-2 goal. Füllkrug definitely offside. The question is, was he in an active offside position or not? I think you can argue either way, and the German FA have come out and said basically it's a toss-up and they would have gone with the on-field decision in either way, so that wasn't the case for VAR. I can understand why they say Füllkrug didn't impede with Kevin Trapp in Frankfurt's goal. Honestly, I could have understood if they said he's so close to the goalkeeper and the shot direction that they would have taken the goal away. So I wouldn't say it's a let-off for Dortmund, but certainly not the opposite either. And then obviously the fourth incident that you already mentioned, the tuck by Hugo Larsson, who was absolutely outstanding on Sunday on Schlotterbeck in extra time, or added time rather. Yeah, I think that's a penalty, but the German FA have said in this instance that decision is marginal enough for it to be within the room of interpretation, or whatever you want to say, of the referee, and that too many penalties would have to be given if that were to be decided by VAR each week. Kind of a cop-out answer, but I think I can sort of understand why that's not a penalty, because that late in the game you really don't want to overturn anything that isn't Stonewall, and I think if it's more a 70-30 penalty than a 90-10 or whatever, so I can kind of live with that not being given. And I think the most important thing is, on the whole, even though Frankfurt were whining quite a bit on social media, as they always do, I think I think both sides were treated roughly the same, with bad calls and calls going in their favor. So ultimately, I would say that the refereeing performance didn't influence the actual result of the game too much.
Yes, there's a fifth incident which you haven't mentioned, where
the offside stuff.
Yeah, the offside stuff, where I think Moukoko had a very clear path toward goal, and the guy did raise the flag, and it was whistled back. But I don't think it was actually offside in the replay, or only marginal. I have no idea.
I actually think that the flag went up for Füllkrug in the build-up. I'm not. I mean, there were two of those instances, but the one that most people have mentioned, as I've seen online, there was, I think, at least Füllkrug might have been offside.
Also wasn't offside.
Okay,
but could have been, but also wasn't.
I mean, that's 40 yards away from the goal, so it's not like they blew the whistle on a certain goal.
I know, but it was a promising chance. But nevertheless, I think the positives here for Dortmund is that they came away with a point, especially after being 2-0 down, and after they were entirely shredded on the right side, or from Dortmund's perspective, left side, by Aurelio Buta, who had a really good game going forward. I think 70% of those attacks, is at least in the first half, all came over Frankfurt's right side, and they did find a lot of space in behind Bensebaini, and did square it into the box, and created a lot of havoc that way. Obviously, the penalty call, which of course, in the 8th minute also sort of was created from such a situation. So I thought overall Dortmund did not look good in the first half, didn't quite find a way to adjust to what Frankfurt were doing, and it felt all a little bit too easy, and kudos to Frankfurt for being a good side on the counterattack. I think that's something that Dortmund can learn from them. But that being said, I'm impressed with how Dortmund came back in this game, especially after Frankfurt also made it 3-2. This also can be a punch in the groin you don't recover from, but Dortmund did recover from that. I think the Sabitzer goal was a really nicely crafted, good layoff by Füllkrug, and a well-taken thing. And then, of course, the Moukoko goal and the Brandt goal very late. Also two very nice goals. I can see why the Moukoko goal might have been ruled out, as you said, because he was close-ish. Who was the guy standing in front of? Was it Füllkrug? I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Brandt goal in the end, nice. Pace change of pace or acceleration by Adeyemi, finding Brandt, who made the run, and slotting it home. It was overall a pretty good game in my book. I don't know about you, but I sort of enjoyed it toward the end, and I really thought that there was a good chance that Dortmund actually might win it, because once it was 3-3 again, I wasn't quite sure how Frankfurt would hold up, since they also had a Thursday night game in Helsinki.
It was at home versus Helsinki, if I'm not mistaken. Also, they won that 6-0, and it's Helsinki. I think the Finnish league, with all due respect, and I don't know how much respect is due, probably not a big test for them. They also rotated the squad a bit, so yeah. I think we kind of need to keep things in perspective. Frankfurt have now gone more than a calendar year without a home defeat in the Bundesliga, and across all competitions they've only lost at home to Napoli in that time. The last team to win at Frankfurt was actually Dortmund in that crazy game, which Frankfurt fans will remind us of forever, because Adeyemi shoved someone, and Frankfurt were the first side ever to be punished by a bad refereeing decision in football history. So given that, and given also the game state, obviously going down twice, going down by 2 goals at first.
And all the injuries, I think we should account
a few injuries, Dortmund having a midweek fixture themselves, not to forget. So yeah, I think coming away with a point, regardless of the bad start into the game, would have been a decent result. Not obviously dream result, but I think away to Frankfurt, a lot of good Bundesliga sides will struggle this season. And then obviously taking that stuff into account, a 3-all draw, very good result for Dortmund, and also kind of showing once again that there is some mettle and mentality in that team, which we don't question anymore, I don't think, at least to that extent, as we've did in the past. But obviously the public, whenever Dortmund have one bad game or one bad result, that discussion always comes up. And I think in that regard, we can say it was a positive experience.
Yeah, no, to me, it was not a bad result at all. I thought that was a pretty good result, and Frankfurt are a good team. I mean, they struggled early on of the season, but they have recovered quite nicely. And with that, we can move on because, of course, Dortmund do play against Bayern Munich now, Lars. Bayern do have a strength also in counter-attacking. And as Frankfurt did expose Dortmund to a certain extent, do you think that Dortmund will suffer similarly going into that game?
Nah, I can't really see Bayern sitting back enough for them to be able to counter. I think Dortmund will happily give them the ball. I think we've seen last season and even in some games this season how Terzic likes to set up the team against very good opponents, and that is a bit more on the back foot, trying to counter perhaps themselves, crowding the center, all that good stuff, which, for example, they showed last season in the Champions League against Man City, which they tried to no avail against PSG, which they did to an extent at Newcastle, although they were a bit more proactive there. So yeah, I can't really see Bayern not having a dominant share of possession, and then it's always kind of difficult to get in behind when you have much of the ball. I think Leverkusen have done it really well at times this season, but they have, for example, Frimpong at right back, who's much more dynamic than I guess it will be Mazraoui for Bayern on Saturday. So that wouldn't be my worry. I think with Bayern, there's enough other stuff to worry about.
Yeah, then let's talk about it. Obviously, I believe that Dortmund are de facto in a title race this year again, because I do believe Dortmund can achieve enough good results to challenge Bayern or Leverkusen or whoever else is up there throughout the entire year. But of course, if you want to win the Bundesliga, well, Dortmund demonstrated that it's possible without actually beating Bayern, but I still do believe that beating them makes life much easier. So to me, that is a very important game, and Dortmund haven't beaten Bayern in a very long time. So obviously, I'm not saying anything surprising when I say I really would love for Dortmund to finally win a game against Bayern Munich, and I don't even know how long the not winning streak is. But it's far too long, and it's also a little bit annoying that this home match is already in the first half of the season, because I feel like it can be an advantage if it's in the second half of the season. But these are all semantics right now. What certainly is a fact is that Joshua Kimmich is not going to play due to foul and the sending off against Darmstadt, which Bayern in the end won comfortably 8-0. I don't know how the game will go, Lars, but at least I'm glad I won't have to look at his face now. Obviously, due to the weekend's results, Bayern Munich are 2 points ahead of Dortmund in the table, as they have 23 points, Leverkusen have 25, and Dortmund have 21, level on points with Stuttgart, and behind that are Leipzig, for those who haven't taken a look at the table in quite a while. So you already talked a little bit about the approach. Should Emre Can be fit, do you think we will once again see that midfield lineup that we saw against Newcastle with Sabitzer, Mecha, and Can in midfield, or how do you think Dortmund will approach this one?
That's kind of a big call to make, because I think Salih Özcan has done nothing to lose his place, not only now against Hoffenheim in the Cup, but on the basis of the entirety of his season, which is obviously a bit less or fewer minutes than Can, but it would be a massive call to leave out your captain in the home game against Bayern, because that's kind of the type of match that you make someone or give someone the armband for, because you think that he can give you something in these types of matches or against this type of opponent. So I think maybe they are bailed out a bit by John's knockout of the Newcastle game because he was obviously not fit to play against Hoffenheim on Wednesday. They have the Newcastle home game the following week after the Bayern game, so there's still load management to be made. So quite possibly John being rested, as it were, which I guess I would think right now is quite possibly a positive for Dortmund. And the rest you kind of have to see. I think this let's call it small ball approach that they did in the cup against Hoffenheim with basically 3 number 10s in Reus, Reina and Brandt. I can't really see that against Bayern. You need a bit more muscle and structural integrity, if you like. So I'm definitely expecting Sabitzer to be in the starting 11. Wouldn't be surprised to see Mecha in there because he's more solidly built than Reina or Brandt or Reus. But then you also need some kind of attacking outlet. So if the midfield 3 from the Newcastle game is in there, then you have to quite possibly make the decision between Brandt and Reus. And right now, I think you don't take either one of them out. So yeah, kind of a selection dilemma, but a positive one to have because it's having too many options and not too few. And that's always a good thing. And ultimately, these types of games can be turned around by making a couple of important substitutions. And I think one area that Terzic has definitely improved in his in-game management over the last few months, especially against Frankfurt. They were much better in the second half, for example. So it's not the worst thing to have selection problems or dilemma and being able to switch things up during the game.
Well, the good news is I find that Julian Brandt, even though it's almost blasphemous to say it since he's probably Dortmund's best or most productive player currently, but as he showed against Frankfurt, he can also come off the bench and do a fairly nice job. But do you really want to wait for him doing that for 60 minutes in the game? It is a dilemma. So I think Bayern's starting 11 is pretty much set in stone. I do believe that Manuel Neuer will obviously start. Then you have Davis, Kim, De Ligt, and Masraoui in the back 4, and Leimer and Goretzka, I assume, will form the midfield. Unless you have any other ideas, and then I assume the wingers will be Sané and Coman, and then you will have Kane and Musiala as the 10 and number 9, or the vice versa. But it's a very dangerous lineup, a lot of pace, a lot of physicality. With Leimer, they have a very aggressive midfielder, similar to Kimmich, I would even say, who is also very good at winning the ball off players in midfield that take a little too long to control it. So I'm not quite looking forward to that. Do you think form-wise Dortmund have a sniff currently against Bayern Munich? There was a time where I would have said easily Dortmund can do something against Bayern, but I haven't seen them in a while. I don't know if they are good right now or not. Maybe you have watched a couple more games and can give a little bit of insight into Dortmund's chances going up against the current champions.
I don't watch Bayern games on principle because it gets depressing after a time to watch them win and win and win. Not particularly interesting. The thing about the lineup for them is that Goretzka is still a question mark, as is Masraoui. Actually, he's not playing on Wednesday in the cup. The game is about to start as we record, but he's not in the squad. And Goretzka is race against time for him to come back. So if both of them were unable to play, that would be a massive thing for Dortmund because Bayern have no right back options behind Masraoui, really. I mean, in the cup they are playing Bouna Sarr, who they've wanted to sell since 5 minutes after they signed him. I guess their preferred decision would be to play Leimer at right back, but obviously they can't do that with Kimmich suspended. So we might see someone like Saar or, a youngster like Franz Kretzig playing in what is the biggest game of the Bundesliga each half season still. So that would be something. I think other than that, it's not a derby. It's not. Don't call it their Klassiker. We've done that all the time over the last few years. But it's still kind of game where the form book doesn't necessarily tell too much about how the game's going to go. I think, especially at Dortmund, both sides have always been able to get it up over the last few years. The question has always been, how competitive are Dortmund in Munich? The answer was, for the most part, not very. But that is something to worry about for, I don't even know, that's probably in April or late March or whatever. So I think it's going to be the typical Dortmund-Bayern game, which means Dortmund perhaps chasing a result at the end of the game and then, question mark of taking your chances. A couple of big refereeing decisions. I'm going to be interested to see who's getting the call there. Last season it was Aitekin at Dortmund. There was obviously a couple of big calls. Bellingham not getting sent off. Was it Davies who got sent off, or was it Koeman for Bayern?
I think it was Koeman.
One of those two guys on the left side.
Not that my memory would hold up against anything, but I think Koeman got sent off there. But either way, you're right. I think it's going to be a typical game. It's going to be nothing we haven't seen before. I'm interested to see how Füllkrug will do, since Aller, I don't assume, will start, and how he can hold up against De Ligt and Kim, because in previous shows I've already said that it's quite important, especially after the Newcastle game, or during the Newcastle game rather. You could see that him being able to control the ball a little bit and lay it off for his teammates does wonders for Dortmund. So having him sort of as a hub up front can help once again. I also do wonder if Bensebaini can recover from his performance against Frankfurt, considering he's a former Gladbach player, so he should know very well how to beat Bayern Munich. And that's pretty much all I have to say on this game. I'm excited for it. I hope Dortmund do well and come out with a good plan and can adapt it if they need it. Lars, any final thoughts?
Just want to mention the last time Dortmund actually beat Bayern was 2019, so that's before COVID. In the starting 11 for Dortmund, you had Ömer Toprak, Axel Witsel, Julian Weigl, Marvin Hitz, head coach Lucien Favre, so it's time.
Yeah, Paco Alcácer scored the winner, so
yeah.
Yeah, it is time. All right, that's our episode title, and for me it's now time to go and run off. So Lars, thank you very much for coming on. Everyone out there, thanks as always for tuning in, and we'll see you on the flip side. Goodbye.